4 years ago, a lot of the YouTube community began promoting a new social media app called Candid, a service that promoted itself as a way to express your opinions online free of consequences. A place for debating where you are free to disagree with someone, and all anonymously. A new social media alternative being promoted by some of your favorite YouTubers. I mean, hell, you may even get to interact with some of them if you use the app. Unfortunately, all was not well with Candid, as many would have you believe. The truth behind the app may have been much more nefarious than most of these sponsored videos let on, but looking into the subject, you'll notice the information is extremely limited. Most of the videos promoting Candid are either completely deleted or unlisted, and most of the videos looking into what could have been a darker side to the staff and the app are now re-uploads on an archive channel, with fractions of the views that they originally garnered 4 years ago. For some reason, the story has been buried by time and mostly forgotten, and possibly buried by some of the staff involved with the entire project in the first place. There seems to be some vested interest from certain people in this story remaining lost to time. So today, we're going to revisit the controversy as a whole, to see what actually happened with this weird little app and the creators who supported it. This is the story of Candid.
I'm on Twitter and it's like, yes, hello ma'am, would you like to talk about the Dark Lord patriarchy? He's all around us, keeping us down, holding us back. It's not because we don't work hard, but it's because of the patriarchy. If you don't believe in him, he's internalized inside of you. Join our cult and we'll save you today. Can I slam the door on these people? Can I virtually just slam the door?
One of the biggest communities on YouTube just a few years ago was the Skeptic community, a pretty diverse group of individuals who all collected around a few main ideas which held them and their shared audience together. Channels like Sargon of Akkad blew up in the wake of Gamergate, a movement against identity politics in video games, which soon enough became a part of a greater wave of criticism against identity politics in academia, journalism, and social media platforms. The anti-social justice warrior wave of content exploded an entire genre of channels in tandem with Sargon, to the point where there were hundreds of people with dedicated audiences making content consistently for thousands of viewers. They criticized third-wave feminism, what they saw as forced diversity in different venues, and made fun of outrage culture for video after video, collaborative livestream after livestream. And while this movement was pretty selfless at first, eventually a lot of these people made YouTube their full-time jobs. Their fans were loyal and there to support them consistently, so it makes perfect sense why they would try to turn it into a career for themselves. They were spending so much time on these videos and there was clearly a market for it, so why not capitalize? And around the time that YouTube ads were growing increasingly scarce due to various controversies around YouTube and its advertisers, sponsors began contacting a lot of YouTubers to promote their products and their videos in exchange for payment. This provided a good alternative to relying on YouTube ads, as one sponsorship payment, depending on the company, can often come pretty close to or even outdo the amount that one would usually receive in AdSense alone. One such product was Candid.
There's gotta be a better way.
Introducing Candid, the brand new social media app that allows you to share your opinions completely anonymously and debate with other anonymous users. Feminist? Candid's for you. Anti-feminist? Candid's for you. Conspiracy theorist? Candid's for you.
I was planning on making a video saying I don't know what all the fuss is about, and then simultaneously Candid hit me up and said, why don't you make a video? And I was like, well, what a coincidence, I was going to anyway, so I took this opportunity. So let me tell you guys a little bit about Candid.
It is an anonymous posting app, kind of like a web forum, but a cool version of 4chan. I have my own Mr. Repsion group set up, feel free to join.
They even did an ad with Onision.
Almost downloaded. There we go. Finally, I can make fun of all these emo people. Oh look, it's a post about 21 Pilots. How original. The only top I'm interested in are the tops of pretty ladies being removed.
Candid was marketed as a free debate platform where you can express your opinions without societal consequences. This basic product message is obviously a pretty enticing offer to groups who don't like outrage culture and want to foster discussion online. And a lot of political YouTubers at the time were reached out to by Candid to promote the app to their audience. Channels like Shoe on Head, Armored Skeptic, Bearing, Some Black Guy, The Amazing Atheist, Blair White, and Mundane Matt are some of the few that promoted the app on their channels and paid sponsorships, no doubt driving thousands of their viewers to the app to check it out. And these weren't just little ads, most of them were entire videos dedicated to advertising this service. With all of these channels being explicitly anti-feminist and pro-free speech, it makes sense that they had a lot of audience overlap, and Candid quickly became populated by a lot of these like-minded individuals who were interested in expressing their own thoughts on politics and using an app that was an alternative to Twitter, which was, and still is, becoming increasingly pro-censorship.
I know the people behind Candid, and they have a commitment to making their app as free speech friendly as possible.
Look, we are living in an increasingly controlled environment. What I like about this app is that when people are free to say anything, insightful ideas that you would normally not hear can percolate.
Free speech enthusiasts saw it as a good place to go and express their thoughts, and all of the channels involved seemed very happy with the product. However, this jovial attitude and nice payday for a lot of these YouTubers swiftly became kind of bitter. Naturally, with the community that was promoting this product being called the Skeptic community, it wouldn't be long before people on the outside began to question the rules behind the app, and the more digging they did, the more skeptical they grew of its intentions and the people behind it. Harmful Opinions was a pretty well-known member of the YouTube community in his day, with multiple channels of his reaching pretty substantial audiences before they were ultimately banned. He had been very critical of feminists, YouTubers, and while he did share his audience with a lot of other skeptics, he seemed to basically reject the label, not wanting to necessarily be a part of that group, at least in name. It becomes more obvious why when you take into account his most infamous video series. On September 27th, 2016, Harmful Opinions posted the video to his channel, Be Censored, a play on the Be Candid slogan, where he went over his belief that Candid was being falsely advertised by YouTubers. His theory was that the true nature of the app was actually to be a platform for encouraging censorship because of the presence of a bot, which removed controversial opinions and jokes from the app.
In case you missed that, she said an NLP, Natural Language Processing Algorithm, checks everything posted to Candid and decides whether it's acceptable based on sentiment. Ladies and gentlemen, what could possibly go wrong?
Harmful Opinions had a few interesting pieces of evidence for his thoughts on the app as well. Firstly, the CEO of the app had done a number of interviews where she said that Candid was intended to be a place without annoying trolls who would negatively contribute to discourse.
You know, all of our posts and comments on Candid go through an NLP algorithm which analyzes and detects sentiment, detects things like slander and hate speech. A machine is going to detect if you're being hateful or spiteful or annoying, and it's going to decide whether your comment or your post should stay on or this is something which should be taken out.
Fantastic. Candid, becandid.com, is one of my greatest sci-fi nightmares come to life. Brilliant. This sounds like Twitter's horrific shadow banning system times 10.
Well, what qualifies as an annoying troll? Who should be allowed to speak and who shouldn't? Harmful decided to do an experiment where he tweeted out two statements, one being white people kill themselves and the other being black people kill themselves. The latter statement was removed from the app, while the one about being white was kept up.
I've already shown that you can say something about white people but not about black people. I'm not going to suggest that's deliberate, but look, if you're annoyed at the stuff Twitter does and Facebook and yada yada, why wouldn't you be pissed at a platform that has a bot that automatically shadow removes your comments so you think you've posted it but other people can't see it, and it varies based on race of who you're talking about?
There seemed to be some AI working here on the app to ban certain people over others, and certain opinions over others. Harmful also found that they were looking to remove what they called objectionable content. Even more concerning was some kind of personality indicator, where people could label you as a certain type of contributor to discourse and then potentially have you removed from the app.
Part of the beauty of anonymity is that you go in without preconceptions about who said whatever it is they're saying. If you're labeled as a troll or labeled as a happy, nice person, that ruins that.
And while not everyone was marketing it as an explicitly free speech service, like The Amazing Atheist did, a few people did compare it to other image boards without disclosing the fact that they would be pretty aggressive about removing posts. And to be honest, more than a few of the people who advertised it seemed to not know much about the service at all. So at the very least, the accusation here against these YouTubers was that they had misled their audience into using a service that wasn't at all what they had promised. Harmful also made the accusation that there was a potential loophole, which would allow people to use Candid to upload CP and avoid being discovered.
The claim that's been made to me is that pedophiles will be trading pics on Candid, they'll get reported, and then their activity will just be hidden, allowing them to continue as they were without fear of being stopped or any other consequence. The problem with this for me is, how do I check this? The whole point is it being so well hidden. Plus, do I really want the stuff I might find in my browsing history? Do I really want to be put on some kind of list? I thought about it for a while and realized that, while I can't test whether it's actually happened or not because it's hidden, I could test whether or not it's possible that the claims are true. And turns out, it is.
These videos were picking up lots of steam, and word was spreading about the potentially misleading advertisements of this app. Pressure was being put on its promoters, and it wouldn't be long before someone was bound to respond. The entire time that Harmful was releasing his videos, he was receiving a wide array of responses from the people promoting Candid and from the staff itself. People like the Amazing Atheist messaged him calling him a faggot, as well as saying that he was on the Candid payroll and had no problem with being called out for it. Amazing Atheist also claimed that Harmful was a bad actor because he was targeting people's sponsors, in a time when a lot of them were struggling to find ways to make money through ad revenue. Shoe1Head, on the other hand, described Candid as just a baby's first Anon board, and said that Harmful needed to calm down. Shoe1Head also said that Candid was never designed as a Valhalla for free speech, and was merely a place where anyone could debate and potentially have their posts removed if they did not contribute to discussion in a meaningful way. This criticism got so bad, however, that eventually Shoe1Head had to post a video to her own channel where she defended herself and the app.
But a lot of people in their videos, and I'm not putting anyone down or being like, I'm so above everyone else, but a lot of people in their videos promoted it not as like a debate platform, but as like free speech heaven, and that's not what it is, and not what they say on their terms of service or anything. They say speak freely, but it's in the sense of you won't have to fear backlash and stuff from coworkers, family, because your name isn't involved. Nobody can like dox you and stuff like that. So poor choice of words on their part, and I told them that, but like, yeah, it's an anon debate platform, it's fun, it's like anonymous Twitter.
But there are problems with the way that the app was marketed by people like Shu, which are kind of misleading. She says that she grew up on image boards like 4chan in her ad for Candid, making the connection between Chan users to Candid and inviting them to use the service.
If you guys weren't aware, I was a child brought up on image boards. I absolutely love the anonymity, the freedom. Candid is basically that, but cuter. 4chan, but cuter. Wow, great.
But what makes 4chan so appealing is not only the anonymity, but also the lack of censorship and social norms. A lot of the boards are places where pretty much anything goes. Candid, on the other hand, was anything but that. Armored Skeptic himself made a video defending Candid, where he talked about a feature on the app that would remove potentially false statements or theories. As said in a CNET article, it also has a rumor alert, aimed to weed out fabrications, but allow news and leaks and insider information to rise to the surface. The AI-based moderation system identifies rumors, and then tries to verify them with a web and a Twitter search. If the statement cannot be validated, the app prompts users to mark the statements as true or rumor. He said that as a skeptic, this was something he could only endorse.
Candid staff is teaching the bot how to tell the difference between something that has been proven to be true and something that has not necessarily been determined as completely factual. As a skeptic, I can only endorse this feat.
As I'm sure you can imagine, a service that seeks to be the arbiter of truth, deleting dissenting thoughts and offensive jokes, wasn't particularly popular amongst a skeptic crowd. Lo and behold, in 2021, Twitter recently introduced a feature which fact-checks tweets created by Twitter staff itself, as well as Birdwatch, a community-supported system where if enough people declare that something is false, it will be marked as incorrect information and potentially removed from the website. This is something that 4 years ago, most skeptics would have raged about, and yet, here they are promoting it for cash. On October 11th of 2016, Harmful Opinions posted the video Shellpocalypse, where he brought some interesting information to the table. He believed that people in the community had been paid by Candid to produce videos to counter his arguments. If this is true, it would mean that not only had lots of skeptics been paid for the ads, but they also had been paid to do follow-ups and try to dispel any dissenting opinions about it. To add on top of that, there were some very similar lines being said by the Candid CEO and some black guy.
Some people have said, oh, you know what, I've heard that, the AI is going to take over. And I'm like, that's not true. It's just an app.
And here's a clip from the sponsored video they paid some black guy to make.
But one thing I want to say to the people that are watching this, and especially my audience, just keep in mind, keep this in mind. It's just an app.
It's just an app.
On top of that, some black guy describes his own video as damage control. They didn't approach anyone to make any counter videos to deal with controversy though.
No, we're not approaching anyone to attack anyone. And in fact, we never even approach anyone to say, can you refute the claim?
Sure.
Mundane Matt's method of responding to Harmful was to call him a conspiracy theorist by photoshopping his YouTube icon onto a picture of Alex Jones. Harmful then decided to send Matt's responses to the CEO of Candid just to see what would happen. The CEO then tried to get Matt's attention via Twitter, and within hours, Matt became much more polite about the subject and less confrontational. Without beating around the bush here, it would seem that Candid was at the very least getting in touch with people who had promoted the app to tell them how to respond to critics. After a lot of the criticism mounting against Candid and some of the pushback from the Skeptic community, Sargon Avocad decided to invite Harmful Opinions onto his channel to talk to him about the situation. Sargon's point of view was that Harmful should lay off people like Shoe on Head and Armored Skeptic, because he didn't think that they should be held accountable for the information that came out about Candid after they had already promoted it. Harmful Opinions seemed to take the position in the stream that people should be very careful about who they allow to sponsor them, because the products they promote could potentially be against the very morals that they prop up on their channel.
Take that approach, it's really not what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, I gathered that. Okay, so one thing that I see repeatedly is people condemning Shoe and Skeptic for information that came out after they did their sponsorship.
If Twitter had done half of what Candid did, they would be vilified by Skeptic channels for suspending people and removing their posts, but because it was on Candid, no one seemed to really care. Because it was promoted by Skeptics, no one was allowed to care, highlighting a double standard in the community. On February 4th, Harmful Opinions had his YouTube account hacked, and as a result, all of his videos, including those about Candid, were removed. So, what actually was Candid? The CEO of Candid described the service as follows in a CNET article. My social media network includes everyone in my life, from friends I haven't seen since high school to family members and work colleagues. Expressing my opinion, especially about controversial issues, inevitably upsets someone. I needed a place to express myself and engage in discussions where ideas can be debated on their own merits, instead of being used to attack me as a person. Joining a cohort of anonymous sharing apps like Whisper and Yik Yak, Candid leans on artificial intelligence to moderate posts. To combat the typical occurrence of a small number of users contributing to a majority of negative posts, Candid developed a natural language processing technology to analyze all of the posts. The tech is meant to remove objectionable content, flag negative posts, and redirect off-topic comments to appropriate groups. The app also has a sentiment analysis model that the company says identifies hate speech, slander, and threats. So, okay, this doesn't seem inherently malicious, right? But with a description like this, and with the motivations of the CEO being to get rid of hate speech, slander, and trolls, it hardly makes sense that this would be marketed to an audience of edgy anti-SJW viewers. What would the kind watchers of The Amazing Atheist or Shoe on Head be particularly interested in with Candid? What drove their team to want to market it to this community? Candid was shut down in 2017 because its parent company, Post Intelligence, was acquired by Uber. And by doing a little bit of research into Post Intelligence, you'll be able to find that the company brands itself as a service that develops the deep learning model of artificial intelligence. Formerly known as MyLikes, Post Intelligence was researched by Harmful Opinions at the time that all of this controversy occurred. He found that there were no ads on the service itself, meaning that they definitely weren't making money through advertising, but they did have funding to keep the app running and pay out YouTubers to heavily advertise their product on a regular basis. So, what is the product, and what was the actual goal of this app? At the time, Harmful suspected that Candid's real product could have been to train the AI and collect data. What if the specific targeting of this edgier YouTube audience was completely intentional? The app itself had a very short runtime, but the main selling point seems to have been this AI. Is it possible that they were simply using the app as a training ground for this artificial intelligence to figure out how edgy people type and interact? We can't say for sure if the goal of Candid was to create a bot for that purpose, but according to Mr. Mediker, he had a conversation with Mundane Matt where he said that the purpose of the app was to train the AI.
Are they just... Ralph, I mean, we know that Matt did, because I had a conversation with him on his channel at like 3 a.m, and we had to, cover it up because he was still worried about the contract and he didn't want to say Candid, so we called it discreet.com. But when I basically brought up a lot of, what Harmful kind of uncovered and what was kind of known, he said that not only was he aware of it, that was their mission statement, was to develop this bot. He said that's what their goal was, so he obviously knew what they were doing.
At the very least, we can say that Mundane Matt thought this was the case. Someone who was heavily sponsored by them and was in frequent contact with their CEO. Ultimately, I doubt we'll ever see someone from the project itself come out to say either way. At the time that everything happened, Harmful Opinions was able to get what he said was a copy of a contract given to YouTubers who promoted Candid, and found that there was a non-disparagement agreement within it saying that they could not speak negatively against the company for 2 years after the ad. But this is where the story really dried up. Ultimately, there wasn't really any accountability from the people who falsely promoted the app. And interestingly enough, while Candid certainly wasn't the end of the Skeptic community, there was definitely some foreshadowing there for people who behaved rather poorly during the situation, and would later be outed as pretty manipulative people.
Especially early on, you were pretty much the only person calling this out.
Pretty much the only person not getting paid.
And as a means of getting a little bit more insight into the situation, I decided I would message some black guy, someone who was very heavily criticized during the peak of the controversy. I really think all that shit got blown out of proportion, and some people tried their best to make it interesting. A lot of creators took that sponsorship just like they would any other, but it turned out to be trash. I saw people saying things like it implemented YouTube's demonetization and whatnot, but YouTube has been doing that way longer than the app existed. A while back, Keemstar messaged me about it, but got uninterested when he realized it wasn't the big scandal he was looking for. The most you can get out of it is that we were irresponsible over 4 years ago, when a lot of us were barely starting to come up on YouTube. Ultimately, the story of Candid is a really interesting saga from the Skeptic community, especially when you take into account the fact that it more or less saw the beginning of the end of the community as a whole. More than anything, what it did for viewers was expose the fact that these guys are human and they can make mistakes. They can get angry to an unreasonable level, they can accidentally promote something under false pretenses, and many of them respond to controversy very poorly. Above all else, what I learned while researching the entire controversy is that you should properly vet the companies that you allow sponsor you before you make ads about them. Ultimately, despite their responses, people like the Amazing Atheist and Armored Skeptic didn't seem to have bad intentions throughout all of the situation. It's my understanding of it that they probably just saw the app was offering them a lot of money, they didn't think that anything was overtly wrong with it, and they decided to naively promote the service under the assumption that nothing could go wrong. Once it got hot for them due to some people actually doing research into the service, they had to either double down and be paid to provide counter arguments, or be completely silent about it. Unfortunately, most of them chose the one that made them look much, much worse. In the future, just be careful what companies you associate with. You never know what they could be up to.
I'm in the Google Play Store. There's Candid right there. Downloading. I'll drink some mustard while I wait. Almost downloaded. There we go. Finally, I can make fun of all these emo people.
I've been Turkey Tom. Thanks for watching, and until next time, leave me alone.